Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Audio Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the Velogames Milano Sanremo. This is the Fantasy Sixes competition. There is also the Classic Squad game, which is the 12-man event. I made a video for that earlier today, so be sure to go and check that out if you're making a team in that competition too. But in terms of this race, it's really quite hard to make a team with multiple strong favourite riders for this race, but I'm going to try and give some good suggestions as to who you guys should be picking. The first one, Tadej Pogačar. I think Pogačar is always just a safe bet to be putting on your team. If you look back at Pogačar's race results at the end of a year and a year roundup, you'll always see that he's doing well in every single kind of race, and I expect this to be no different. I think he finished 5th or 6th last year, so he's just sensational, and I think he looks so good at Paris-Nice. I know that the Poggio doesn't specifically suit him. I know a lot of people have pointed this out, but you have to consider that Pogačar is just a sensational talent, so I think that he is a good choice. Wout van Aert is also a good pick. He has been coming back from some illness and he looked okay at Tirreno, to be fair. I think I would prefer taking Pogačar over him. Wout van Aert I think is still safe, a very safe option for a top 10. It's just whether, if he finishes in 8th place, then that might be credits wasted, for example. But that's always the case with these expensive riders. He does have a really strong team around him, does Wout van Aert. Van der Poel does have some question marks over his head, considering that he hasn't looked that great so far this season. He has a pretty decent team around him, but probably not as strong as the Jumbo-Visma boys. And I do think that Van der Poel is still a good choice. I still think that he could become top 10, but there is also the possibility that he could just blow up spectacularly and just get dropped on the Poggio. For some reason, I just don't see that happening with Pogačar and Wout van Aert. But I'm more than happy to be surprised by Van der Poel. I think that he could still win this race, but I'm just not as certain he'll be as likely to win as Wout van Aert and Pogačar. Alaphilippe, I'm not that keen on, to be honest with you. Quick-step riders just aren't really tickling my fancy right now. I just don't think he's looked that great, apart from the Phone Delorme Classic or something I think he won. So I'm not that certain on Alaphilippe at 28. I think there are better riders who are cheaper than him. De Lee might be one of them. Of course, he is a super bike rider and a really strong sprinter as well, and classics man, but he's never done this race before, and the last time somebody won on debut was Mark Cavendish, and I just don't think that De Lee first time round is going to be winning the race. Could he still come top 10? Yes, but when things really kick off on the Poggio with Pogačar and stuff, do I think that he's going to be able to keep up? I'm not convinced. Mohoric, of course, he won last year and his price has gone up as a consequence of this, more than likely, but I think that he should still be finishing inside the top 10. A very safe choice for you to be putting onto your team. Philipsen is a strange one as well. Whether I could see him winning, but he's going to have to get over the Poggio, which I'm just not certain about. He does fill the characteristics of somebody who should be doing well here, but has never fulfilled that potential. And also with Van der Poel alongside, it's going to be hard to balance those two. I think that this race just favours the attackers more, so I'd really stick away from the sprinters just to be safe. Of course, you could say Mads Pedersen's a sprinter, and I'm like, yeah, to be fair, he is kind of the exception to this. I think that Pedersen is a really good choice, and I think I'm thinking of putting him on my team. He's looked super strong recently, and I think that there's a lot of hype built up around Pedersen doing well this year, and I think that he could really, well, if you watched my preview, I still think that he could finish on the podium. With Caleb Ewan, probably not a great one, just because he hasn't looked that great recently. He's been beaten by Gerben Tayson in a sprint, so he doesn't also have the strongest team around him, so I'm just not thinking that Caleb's going to be that great. Asgreen, again, he'll be a domestique more than likely, leading people out into the Poggio, so don't be picking Asgreen, for goodness sake. 22-point riders, you've got the French men of Barguil, Cosnefroy and Demar. Neither of them are good picks, don't be picking them. Binny is a much better choice, probably going to be finishing inside the top 10, possibly a top 5, and I think that Binny's a much safer choice, as is possibly Christophe Laporte. He might be working for Wout van Aert, but if you really were wanting to have a bit of a differential pick, I think that Laporte could be that guy. He also secures maybe some assist points if Wout van Aert finishes on the podium. Lampard isn't a good choice. Stuyven, I'm apprehensive to pick, but you also have to remember that when Stuyven won this race in 2021, he did so after not doing very well in the whole season prior, so you must also consider that he could be a good choice. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the things that I'm saying are over my opinion. If you have a gut feeling about a rider, they could certainly do well. Stuyven is just an example of somebody who, although didn't have the results beforehand, can still go and win this race. And that's the beauty of Milano Sanremo. 20-point riders, I think my favourite one is Ghana. The rest of them are just a bit meh. You got some UAE expensive domestiques. Aram Baru, who hasn't looked that great recently. Bennett's going to get dropped in Cortina. I just don't really see it. I think he might finish top 20, to be honest with you. Van Poppel might be a better choice than Bennett because he's a better climber, but I'm still not convinced. I think that Ghana could be the best one considering that they don't have Pidcock here. 18-point riders, Bettiol crashed in Stradie, Bilbao will be a domestique, Coquard should be doing well here but has never done so I don't really understand that. I think that he could come top 20, kind of similar to Ivan Garcia Cortina. St. Cloud did well in this race last year but hasn't shown those flashes of form that we saw last year, so I'm not convinced he's in the same form. Turgis finished second in this race last year, kind of out of nowhere. I think that was a really under the radar performance. I think everybody kind of forgets about that, but Turgis could certainly be a good one considering that Sagan doesn't look that good at the moment. Fred Wright will be a domestique, as will Velen. So you got a lot of expensive domestiques here. 16-point riders, Cav will get dropped. Magnus Cort Nielsen could be an alright one, but he never really does that well on one-day races for some reason, despite the fact that he has all the qualities of a good one-day racer. Should he be leading EF? Probably. I think they will all have a fairly open kind of chance in the team, which does kind of make me a bit worried about picking them because they could all be leaders really. Could Magnus Cort Nielsen win this race? Probably not. Could he come top 10? Yes. I think he's done that in the past, so I don't see any reason why not again. Other 16-point riders, of course, you've got Kwiatkowski. He won this race in 2017, but he has just had a kid. So is he going to be willing to go freaking crazy descent on the Poggio when he's just had a kid? I'm not really too sure. Just a weird bit of analysis there. You've also got Paulus. He could be another leader for EF, but probably lacks the snap to really follow the likes of Pogacar and stuff. I mean, he wasn't able to follow Pogacar in Paris, so why would he be able to follow him now? That's kind of my logic there. Rota, Mike Turnison, again, just not going to be in that front group. 14-point riders, Mezgec will have his own freedom considering that Matthews isn't competing here because he has COVID, so that's a pretty good one. Jonathan Navarez as well, alongside Ghana. I think he'll have a free card to play because they don't have Pidcock, and I think that he could be a pretty good one. He usually pulls out some surprise one-day results every year, and I certainly think he could be a surprise rider to finish in the top 10. Sheffield doesn't really have the snap. He's like a really strong kind of diesel engine, so I'm not sure about him being able to follow the moves, but if he can set his own pace, he could certainly do quite well in this race, I think. Jake Stewart for Groupama could be a decent one considering that although Damar's here and he's like looking pretty good, is he going to be able to follow the attacks? Probably not. Corbin Strong will probably be the best rider for Israel. Whether they'll ride for him, I don't know. 12-point riders, Stibar maybe for the same reason that Mezgec is a good pick. 10-point riders, just not that many that I like the look of. Kevin Genietz could be a good one. If you were watching Paris-Nice, you will have seen how good his form is looking. And again, kind of similar to Jake Stewart, because they don't really have a strong climbing attacking choice. Could Genietz finish top 10 in this race? Maybe. Top 15 though, I think could certainly be on the cards. Other 10-point riders I'm not a massive fan of, to be honest with you. If you wanted an expensive assist points, you could go with Van Hooijdonk if you so wanted. 8-point riders, again, nothing really that's catching my eye. It's just kind of riders who aren't going to do that much. Maxime Van Hils could be a better one if you consider that if De Lee and Caleb Ewan aren't there, maybe Van Hils might be. 6-point riders, it's all kind of very similar. There aren't that many which I like the look of. I'd be looking more possibly towards assist points at this stage, to be honest. You could go with Tim de Klerk if you think that Alaphilippe's going to do well. Kim Hajduk isn't that bad of a choice. He's looked pretty good recently. Whether he might have his own chances in this race. Moschetti's looked quite fast recently at Milano Torino, but is his climbing good enough? I'm not really convinced. You've also got Henok Mulurban for Green Project. He won the Tour of Rwanda. And then outside of them, Sobrero actually could be the best 6-point rider because, like I said, Matthews isn't here and he was looking really good, like really strong at Paris-Nice. So whether he could come top 20, probably the best 6-point rider in my opinion. Jos van Emden for the assist points on Wout van Aert. And really that's the tale of these 6 and 4 point riders, there aren't that many which are looking that good. Sobrero is really the best one in my opinion. For 4 point riders, if you think that Caleb's going to win or podium, go with Drisners and Friesen. But outside of that, my strongest recommendation would be pick either Aolo Cometa riders, Green Project Bardiani riders, or Tudor Pro Cycling riders. Because if you can get those guys in the break, I think they get something like 60 points per checkpoint that they get to. And if you get a bit lucky, they get to like the second, maybe third checkpoint. So they can get you like 120, 180 points if you get lucky. And I think honestly, just trying to get lucky with guys going into the breakaway is probably your best bet in terms of the 4 point riders. So what I've done with my team at the moment is I've just gone with all Tudor Pro Cycling, thinking that they're going to get in there and one of these riders is probably going to be in there. Even if it's not all of them, it'll probably be one. And you know, the odds are with me in this sense, because one of them will probably be in there. And then I've got Pogacar, Wout van Aert and Pedersen, because I think that if you saw my preview, I think that will be first, second and third. So therefore I've gone with all of them because I'm sticking with my guns. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Who are you thinking of putting onto your team? Are there any good 6 or 4 point riders that I've missed that you think could be a good shout? Put it all in the comments section. And all that is left to say is happy St. Patrick's Day, firstly. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video. Salut!